Hello everybody, I'm Martin. Welcome to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. Today, we're back on the road to Advanced Rocketry, except we are still not actually doing Advanced Rocketry this episode, because there's still one more prerequisite to make before we can make titanium. And that's the Advanced Metallurgic Fabricator from Modular Machines. And this lets us make the titanium we need to do all of our stuff for Advanced Rocketry later. Now I should note that once we're in space, we can find rutile ore pretty easily to just smelt directly into titanium. But early on, the only way we can make it is via this recipe in the Advanced Metallurgic Fabricator utilizing liquid chlorine, magnesium ore, salt, and carbon plates. Now, we should probably take a look at this recipe real fast to make sure we're not digging any holes, because while this seems reasonable and we can get this, and this is something we've done a ton of, salt is probably most easily made from the Pam's Harvestcraft variety because you can just do water in a pot. So the salt is easy to do, and the liquid chlorine, however, requires making chlorine from mechanism, which we make from brine. Well, all of that would be pretty easy to do. The standard recipe for brine is from the thermal evaporation controller for mechanism. But let's actually kill two birds with one stone here, and let's go an easier route, because there is an alternate recipe for brine inside the melter. And it turns out we can just melt down salt. And well, Pam's Harvestcraft has a solution for us for that, because they have the water filter, which just uses woven cotton, which is just string, to make fresh water and salt. And we can just use the fresh water for cooking, as well as the salt. It doesn't do it very fast, but we don't actually need a lot of brine on this step. When it comes time to make a fusion reactor, yeah, we'll need to go make the thermal evaporation plant. But until we need larger amounts, we might as well just go do the Pam's Harvestcraft version, because why do things the normal way? And the Harvestcraft one is actually super simple. It's just iron bars and some stone, and it doesn't even require power. It just requires us providing the woven cotton. So I decided to just make it and expand the area where my automatic fisher is. It just needs to be in a 5x5 pool of water. It has to be in the center, and then it just works. And if we look inside it, you can see that it's full. If we remove these, it will slowly start to tick up. And we'll use up the woven cloth. And we can hook up a crafter to it just like that. The water filter takes its inputs into the top, and we can pull it out of the bottom this way and feed it back into our drawers. So now we have infinite salt and water, slowly over time. Okay, so now that we've got the brine situation sorted out, let's look into what we need to do to actually make the machine itself. And the list of stuff we need to make is not insignificant, including some mutagen. The mutagen, however, is fairly easy to produce. It's just from a Gendustry mutagen producer, which, while it looks like these are scary things, they're actually pretty easy to make. It's all just basic materials for the most part. So that part looks scary and won't be a problem. The problem will be all of these other random pieces that we need, and making sure we have the list straight, since as you can see it continually fluxes around like this, showing you the different inputs and outputs you can use and the different configurations. You can hold shift or whatever your sneak button is bound to freeze the list, but that only freezes it as long as you're holding it, which is kind of problematic. So we probably should talk about the various pieces necessary to make one of these. And while this list is pretty long, the pieces are all fairly similar in what they require to make. The higher version, so you go from normal to big to huge for the various item input slots and whatnot, are just a stage up from the previous one. And almost all of these require modularium alloy to make. The modularium alloy is hideously expensive to make in the scheme of things, because it requires electrical steel from Ender IO, requires platinum ingots, which, well, we thankfully have a decent supply of these now, and powered palace crystals, which aren't hard to make but are time consuming, a pulsating crystal from Ender IO, which thankfully isn't hard for us to make at this point, since they're just iron and ender pearls put together, but it will eat up quite a bit of time making all of them, and we need a lot of them. And each of these individual pieces requires different things from a whole bunch of different mods, like advanced generators and Ender IO, and actually additions, forestry, immersive engineering. You get the idea. It's a lot of them. It adds up pretty quick, but most of them aren't very hard. It just requires a ton of those modularium ingots. So I probably should start getting those made, because that's going to take a bit. There is one other piece worth mentioning. Some of the blocks require a basic capacitor from Ender IO, and since we haven't started Ender IO yet, they require grains of infinity. And if you don't know what these are, they come from just setting fire to bedrock. There are ways to automate this. I haven't bothered yet because I haven't needed to, and I'll probably just go create a couple with a flint and steel down in the basement somewhere. Okay, so this is a new one on me. This is literally the next day. The subcombines for all of the pieces for this took so long it ate up all of my gaming time to get this episode done, so that wasn't ideal. I did, however, find some time to make some upgrades to my base. You notice the power cables are all now resonant cables. I fixed those and I removed most of my mechanism power cubes to get better power throughput through my base, because it turns out I wasn't actually using all of my advanced generator. I was only using about half of it just due to using the wrong power cables and parts, because so much of it was hardened flux ducts running around that only allowed 40,000 power total instead of the 80,000 mine was outputting. So this will solve that problem pretty much for good. Yeah, I also should go make another one because I'm creating way more ethylene than I am power. But that's a problem for another day's art. Today, however, we need to finish up the Advanced Metallurgic Fabricator. So I've got everything made. I've got the blueprint in my hand here. And what you do is you right click the blueprint to bring this up. Wait till it's on the one that you want. Hold shift to lock it. And then left click the preview button to bring up the preview. And then I realized I'm facing entirely the wrong direction. Okay, so apparently this is on an older version of Modular Machinery and you can't actually rotate the blueprint. So I'm going to be kind of flying by the seat of my pants for flipping everything on this. Okay, that was a little bit of a pain. I just had to constantly re-reference the blueprint because popping it up on the screen did not help. I also set up the melter. It's currently processing some salt into brine. If we come back here and look in the fluid hatch, you can see that the brine tank is indeed filling up. And if we come into the controller, it says that it's found Advanced Metallurgic Fabricator, so it has been finished. It's missing the input items. So let's put one batch in to find out if it works. So 2 magnesium, 1 carbon plate, and 4 salt. It helps a great deal if you remember the recipe you're using requires chlorine and not the brine directly. Give me a minute to set up the processing to make this into chlorine. Okay, so this took more fiddling with the rotation on the mechanism machines than I would have liked, because you see that brown panel on the side? They only output their gases to specific sides, so I had to make sure that both the condensator and the electrolytic separator were both facing the correct way, and it was not very intuitive, despite the fact that I've already done this for the advanced generator that I did. But coming back here to the fluid hatch, you can see that I now have a batch of liquid chlorine instead of brine in here. So I guess we should toss some stuff in here and see if this works this time, eh? Missing input item, but I think it just changed. Yep, and the inputs are gone now. We come around to the back to the output hatch, and yay, we have titanium. So that's a success. Give me 1 sec to clean this up a little bit. Okay, added 2 chests for input and output, hid them under the actual modular machine. Need to add some facades on top of some of the cabling in the back still, but this should at least get it going. I'm going to need to add a quantum entangler porter or a duct all the way back to my base connected to a slave to import salt in here full time, because it takes a while to generate enough brine to make titanium, which is fine because I don't hopefully need a lot of it right now. But let's make sure that this works with more than one at a time real fast. So the input is the one on the right. We'll toss in 12 magnesium, 24 salt, and 6 carbon plates. Those should input. It looks like they're processing pretty quickly. And I probably just ran out of chlorine. Check over here, and there should now be, yep, titanium. I couldn't stop fiddling it. I switched out my resonant flux ducts for signal-plated impulse flux ducts to pass items and power through here. The power throughput is a bit less than the resonant ones, but now we can pass everything into here, and as you can see, it's just auto-processing salt all the time until the tank fills up. So that'll be useful. That said, we should probably discuss the other metals this can make, because there's some really good uses for it, including making modularium alloys cheaper than the base way. So now that we have this made, this was a very good first one to have made, because it makes making all of the other modular machines we can make that much cheaper to do. So you can see very specifically it only takes 1 empowered Palace crystal and 1 platinum ingot instead of 2 of each. But it can also do some interesting ingots, mostly for the same prices. A lot of it's just a convenience, although I think this is double for osmiridium, but I can't remember. and you can make mana infused, but we're pulling enough out of that, out of our either the void mine or the laser base. I can't remember which, maybe both. Anyhow, enough excuses. On to Advanced Rocketry next week, although I really want to get back to AE2 because I really deeply regretted not moving into auto crafting prior to doing this episode. So we'll have to get back to that in the near future as well. But for real, Advanced Rocketry, be there. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.